You and I have been blessed to have celebrated another Christmas, another glorious Christmas season, and beginning of a brand new year, 2025. It's difficult for me, as an older person, well, actually, an old person, to grasp the reality of this new year, 2025. I've almost lived 1/4 of this 21st century. That just boggles my mind. Now, back to all the recent celebrations. Most of us have been in the midst of many crowds of people at church or at family gatherings. All of those events have been wonderful blessings. However, some crowds can be uncomfortable, aggravating, maybe even dangerous. I don't like being in situations where I don't have elbow room. I like enough space around me so I can move freely without being impeded. If I get in a situation, for instance, in a crowded, packed store or a restaurant, I look for the nearest exit and make a hasty retreat. Being pressed together makes me uncomfortable. Two boys were talking about Noah and the ark. They thought about all the odors, all the noise, and all the inconvenience of being cooped up on that boat with all those animals around. They talked about how crowded and about how dirty, and the problem of separating animals that were natural enemies. And on they discussed Noah and the ark. One of the boys said, "I just don't think I could stand being that crowded." Another boy thought for a moment, and then he said, "Well, yes, it must have been awful. But think of it the other way. It was still the best thing afloat." As we begin 2025, that's how I think about the Christian church. It isn't perfect, but it's still the best thing afloat. Being in a crowd of dedicated, genuine Christian women and Christian men is a lot better than being in a crowd of thieves and robbers. Being hemmed in, being surrounded by God, is a good thing. In Psalm 139, verse 5, the psalmist says, "You hem me in behind and before. You lay your hand upon me." Think about it. God hems you and me, behind and before. God lays his hand upon us. To me, it's very comforting to know that God encircles me, that God surrounds me. Even in an uncomfortable, crowded situation, God is still present. God's hand is upon us, constantly leading us in the path God wants us to travel. This is good news. This is great news as you and I travel through 2025.